It is a great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Fondation Paler to this evening's discussion on collecting and curating media art. I would like to briefly introduce our renowned guests, Julia Stoschek, Nefkens, and Daniel Birnbaum, who have very generously accepted the invitation to join the panel and share their expertise and experience with us. Mostly taken from the respective websites, these introductory words are far from giving an encompassing presentation. It is, however, informative and exciting to understand the focus of their individual engagement with and approach to media art, or time-based art, or moving image art. Nefkens is an art collector since 2001. In 2016, he decided to exclusively focus on video art, which was, as he points out, his first love, and instead of buying existing works, he commissions and helps new works to come to life. The Nefkens Foundation, set up for this purpose, supports emerging and mid-career international video artists by financing production and providing them with an international platform through awards, scholarships, commissions and residencies. Through its activities, the Nefkens Foundation has an extensive network in Asia, the Americas, Africa and Europe, enabling it to present the new videos created by the artists to a global audience. The Julia Stoschek collection was founded in 2002 and is since then dedicated to collecting, conserving and presenting time-based art. As one of the world's most comprehensive private collections of time-based art, more than 860 works by more than 280 artists across the genres and generations offer an overview of time-based art from the 1960s to today, with a strong focus on works made after 2000. In order to make the collection accessible to a larger public, Julia Stoschek opened the Julia Stoschek collection in 2007 in Düsseldorf, followed by a second exhibition space in Berlin that opened in 2016. The long-term goal of the Julia Stoschek collection is to make the entire collection gradually available online, eventually leading to an open access digital collection platform. This process has started recently. And finally, Daniel Birnbaum, the moderator of the panel. Until 2 years ago, he was known as the director of the Städelschule in Frankfurt for 10 years, then as director of the Moderna Museum in Stockholm before joining Acute Art. During this time, he contributed to several biennials, such as the first Moscow Biennial in 2007 or as director of the Venice Biennial in 2009. Since 2 years, he is director and curator of Acute Art, an institutional initiative that collaborates with leading international artists, providing access to cutting-edge technologies that allow them to translate their creative vision into new digital mediums, including virtual, augmented, and mixed realities. With that said, I look forward to the discussion and gladly give the virtual floor to you, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Theodora. Yes, I am the moderator, and it's my job to let you get to know two great people. We will talk about art, but we will also talk about technologies and new possibilities for art. But we will also have a chance to get to know two very important individuals in this field. I want to thank the Fondation and Muse and the Rolls-Royce Art Program for hosting today's conversation. Fondation Baylor is partnering with Muse for the Dream Commission, which supports moving image works created by emerging and mid-career artists worldwide. I have worked with many kinds of art, not only video art or new technology art, but I have, of course, come across Han and Julia in many contexts. I'm curious, they are two key collectors today, and they are specialized in a way that not all artists are. And one wonders a little bit how these things actually happen. Maybe, if you don't mind, Han, I will start ladies first with Julia and ask Julia a little bit about how it all began. I mean, it's not an obsession, I presume. It's more of a strong interest, but it's now so many years that you've concentrated on new media art. How did it actually begin? Was it an encounter with a person, or with a specific artwork, or with an institution, or, I mean, what was the beginning of this?
It is definitely an obsession to start with this. I started collecting video art because it's the medium of my generation and I can identify with it. So I love movement, I love images. It's a very, very personal thing for me. I'm absolutely fascinated by the virtuality of media art and also what it means to understand our reality. But for sure, there has been, let's say, like a life-changing moment. I think a little bit similar what happened to you, Han. I saw it on your website that you also had a great experience late end of the 90s when you saw Pipilotti Wrist show in Paris, and something similar happened to me. It happened in 2003. I was on a gallery tour in New York, Chelsea, and I visited Gagosian Gallery and I saw an art installation by Douglas Gordon with the title Play Dead Real Time. It's a huge installation and I entered these rooms. So you have to imagine two big screens and one monitor on the floor. And so content-wise, you could see on the screens a life-size Indian elephant, by large, the biggest domestic animal, playing his own death. And I was so fascinated by the idea to train an elephant to lie down, to play his own death against all his instincts and the boundaries between let's say a convinced behavior and also nature was fluently, and I was absolutely fascinated and driven by this art piece. I spent hours and hours in the gallery, and from since then I decided I have to follow this medium. I had to get more experience, so I started traveling around, watching video art, getting more knowledge, more experience. It's to train my eyes, and this was really a very, very important beginning for me.
And now you're running a foundation with two venues, one in Düsseldorf and one in Berlin, where you've done innumerable shows already. At the beginning, I remember you did just one big show every year, but now it's show after show everywhere, and you have collected, I don't know how many works. How many works do you have now?
Yeah, I mean, there was an announcement and like around 860, nearly to 900. I mean, I don't count them every day, but something between 860 and 900, I would say, yeah.
So, you know, if you have to count every day, it just means there's a lot being added. And how would you define the field? I mean, you said video art, but in the introduction, Theodora said time-based art. I mean, today with the video and digital mediums and all of these different possibilities,
I mean, in my understanding, I mean, the collection is focused on video art, but we also, I mean, in the collection there is photography, installation, performance art, but the focal point and is on the moving image, starting from the 60s until today.
Thank you. Han, I read somewhere also that you had this epiphany, and I can share your enthusiasm when it comes to Pipilotti Wrist. I remember when I saw it first, also at the Diana Museum. I mean, everyone remembers when it, you know, when they come across the Pipilotti Wrist piece for the first time, I think. And I picked it as the best work of the year for Art Forum. So we all have these Pipilotti experiences. But
yeah, I love Pipilotti as well, very much. So, to say that.
You have a lot of older work, right, Julia?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Han, which piece was it and what was it? Why did it make such an impression, do you think?
Well, Daniel, I remember very, very well. It was the 23rd of May, 1999. There was an exhibition called Remake of the Weekend at the Musée de l'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris, curated by Hans Obricht. And at the time, I was very, very green. I didn't know very much about contemporary art, but I liked the name, Pipilotti. I thought this is an interesting name for an artist. And I liked the title, Remake of a Weekend. How is she going to remake that weekend? So I just went in and I got absorbed by the universe of the week. And in fact, she hasn't let me lose since that time. And just as Julia said, I spent hours in the museum being absorbed by her colors, by the movement, by the music, by the whole atmosphere of the East. And when after 2.5 hours, I walked out on the street again, my eyes were blinking at the lights, and I knew I want to be part of this world. How? I'm not an artist. So the only thing that's left really is to collect art. But I knew right away from the beginning that I wanted the things I love to be seen by other people. I wanted to share it. And I think that's really the motor that keeps me going. Enormous desire to share what I'm passionate about with other people. And just as Julia said, in the beginning, if you don't know that much, you have to think about what you want to do. You talk with a lot of people. I talked with a lot of people from museums as well to see how we could collaborate. And finally, I found someone to collaborate with. That's Charles X, who at the time was the director of the Centraal Museum in Utrecht. He's now the director of the Museum Boijmans van Beuningen. We made an agreement. The artworks that I would buy and that would fit in his collection would become part of the museum as a promised gift. So in other words, when I'm no longer there, the artworks will still be there at the museum. And by some coincidence, the first work I bought was by Pipilotti. It was 50, the big installation with the guy running on the street. And that was shown in the Netherlands. But Pipilotti has been a red thread in my life because the Boijmans van Beuningen Museum did an exhibition, so we produced a work with her that was there in the entrance where people would be hanging, and that was kind of like a jukebox where they could choose videos. Some of were of Pipilotti, but some from other people as well. And Pipilotti Ries also gained an award here in Barcelona from the Muse Foundation. And I commissioned a work for her. She made a video specifically to be projected onto the sculpture of Miro, which is, of course, quite special. And we even were invited to go to Istanbul to show the video 50 there. Pipilotti is always there. So the collecting started with museums, but very soon I found out that even well-known artists often have problems producing work. So rather than buying, that was even after a couple of years, rather than buying work that's already there, I decided to commission work, always together with museums. So I would know that there's a platform for the work. And that's what I've been doing for the last, well, let's say 17 years. And I have a tendency to expand. I went from all sorts of forms of art, sculpture, installations, photography, video. I moved on to cutting edge fashion. And there came a time that when somebody asked me, so what exactly do you do? I'd have to tell them, now you sit down, take a cup of tea, and I will explain exactly what I do. Then I realized, 2016, that in order to do something very well, concentrate, you have to focus. I guess that comes a little bit with my age. Now that I'm older, I think I have the patience to focus. And I decided to go back to my first love, which is video art. So that's all we do at the moment. We produce video art, emerging artists, find platforms to show that work. so I can explain it now in less than a minute.
Thank you. How interesting. Julia, did you collect anything before you started with moving images? Did you collect the occasional photograph or a painting or something?
No, when I was a child, I had a little collection of stickers. So I think from my own personality, I love to put things from the same genre together. So I think that's something that suits very good to my own personality. But I didn't have an art collection before, so I just started really professional with video.
And Han, I mean, you branched out, so you started to do other things occasionally, but the beginning was really video based. That was the Pippi Lotterist epiphany.
That was the first love. That was what caught me. So really, the fact that I'm here now talking to you, Julia, is really thanks to Pippi Lotti and to Hans. Always.
Yeah, Han, do you know that because I'm a trustee at MoCA in Los Angeles, and we just installed a fantastic Pippi Lotti wrist show. For sure, we can't open yet, but let's cross fingers. Next year we can open it, and it will be lovely to welcome you in Los Angeles.
Definitely, I'll go. Yeah. We have a date.
Perfect.
So I'm a little bit curious how these obsessions of yours, or let's say these interests, are linked to other parts of your life. With you, Julia, I know that you come from a kind of technology family, and you've spoken about that before. That your interest in the impact of technology on life and art is somehow. Yeah, it makes sense that this kind of art is somehow a little bit linked to interests that you share with other family members and what you work with.
Absolutely. In my understanding, collecting art in the 21st century means that you have to have a connection to the present, but also grappling with the future, with the ephemeral. We do live in the digital world, surrounded by the moving image, and I'm super driven by contemporaneity. So I understand the collection as an archive of temporalities. And what I'll try to do with the collection is to create an image of the social and cultural conditions of my generation. And I have absolutely the feeling that the ephemeral is a finding signature of our time, and that's what people really want and need now. And video art can offer this fantastic experience. So I love the idea of building and creating the future with new technologies. And as Beuys once said, the future we want to have must be invented. I love to be part of this digital revolution, and also to build maybe, let's say, a little bit better world with art. And that's my idea and my vision with the collection.
Now, it's interesting how once or twice every century there's some new machinery, some new technology that kind of changes everything. It changes not only the possibility to experience and distribute art, it even changes what art is. And I mean, think of photography. It's 150 years ago now. Yeah. It's changed everything, and there were all these confusions that it would kill painting and whatnot. Is it science, esoteric science? And then there's film, and then there was cinema.
Yeah, and now we have VR and AR. I mean, you are the expert of that. So we started a collaboration. Artists have the possibility to create completely new artistic languages with these new technologies, and I think this is so exciting and so fascinating for me. So I can't change it anymore. I'm so addicted to video. Yeah,
interesting. It makes a lot of sense that your kind of technology background in your other life, because I know you're involved with other things than art, that there's a link in there into the arts where that is explored. I mean, I know you're a writer and a journalist and have done many other things in your life. Would you say that your collecting passion is totally different from everything else you do, or are there links?
No, of course it's not totally different. Even if I wanted to be, I don't think I can do something that's totally different from who I am. I think the link with video art is really the narrative. Since I'm a writer, narrative is very important for me, and video allows for this at least for the time, to make a narrative. This is something I'm attracted to. I just wanted to go back to something that Julia just said about how how energizing video art can be, because it is such, it has a finger on the pulse of the time. We work a lot in Asia, for example, also in Korea. We have an award there. So I've been working a lot with Korean artists, emerging artists. So they're of this very young generation. And I really got presented to a world, a language that's so very different from the one I myself use and I'm used to, that I find it so enriching to get to know these young people and see what they're doing, and particularly in other cultures. I'm very much drawn to Asia. I feel very much at home there. I think what I like about Asia, besides the kindness of the people, is that a lot is said without saying it. You have to read between the lines. There's a big subtlety. Things can depend on the tone. Things can depend on what's not being said. And I find that almost poetic. It's attractive to me as a writer, and that is reflected in the art that comes from Asia as well.
Some people would claim that the kind of art that you act, that you show, it's rather difficult for normal people to experience, to have a domestic relationship to, because it needs technology. And I guess you have both started professional institutions, foundations for it. And I'm quite curious about how you work with these foundations. I know a little bit about it, but Julia is doing these shows everywhere, and I mean, primarily in her own spaces. And Han, you said that you produce. I mean, how does that work? Can people apply and they do, or
No.
you find the artists, or how does it work?
No, I tell you how it works. We have collaborations with different museums all over the world. So we have awards. So instead of just getting a commission, an artist receives an award. In order to choose the artist, we have for each award 10 scouts in the geographical area. So that might be Asia, might be the Middle East, it might be Latin America. So we have the people who know about that area that bring in each of them 3 candidates. So I want you to imagine just this incredible pleasure that I receive 33 candidates, 33 artists from, let's say, Asia, from Cambodia, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, artists that I've never heard of. Just this wonderful gift that I receive, being able to get to know what's going on in those parts of the world. We do a pre-selection together with the different art institutions we work with, because the works travel. It's not just one art institution. We show the works in Singapore, in Manila, Kuala Lumpur, in Seoul, in Geneva, in Brussels, Barcelona. So the directors of all these art institutions are a member of the jury, and together we decide who is going to be the winner. That winner will produce a work. He or she has about a year time to make that work, that will then be shown in all these different venues.
Beautiful. Now, very, very interesting. I'm thinking of producing is one thing, hosting and exhibiting is one, and collecting is yet another challenge. And a tiny anecdote, many years ago, I think it's almost 15 years ago, I was asked to curate works out of a quite well-known American collection called the Cramlich collection. And I selected, I think, 7 or 8 works and made a show at the MIT List Gallery. And it worked, but it was very difficult. And I mean, I had backing from the most sophisticated technical university maybe in the world. And it just showed how the technical challenges sometimes with these work that actually, they use what we would refer to as outmoded technologies already. It wasn't so easy to find always the right things. I'm curious about, what you see as the main challenges when you collect it. It's really and technologies age too. And I mean, what are what are challenges that you encounter in when it comes to that aspect? Maybe Julia, you can start.
So the technical challenges are fundamental in both terms, exhibition-wise, but also for archiving. I mentioned before that I have a lot of historical art pieces in the collection, 60s, 70s. They were produced in older formats, for example, like 16 millimeters, 35 millimeters. So on one hand, we try to save the hardware, if there isn't hardware. So we have a special climax control archive. And on the other hand, this is one of the strategies of the collection, is to digitize the completely collection and always to convert to the newest formats. But it's a lot of effort. And as you mentioned before, for the historical art pieces, I try to acquire old monitors, for example, for a Nam June Paik installation. And it's not easy. But this is also a reason why I think it's so impossible to digitize the complete collection. So to give it to the next generation. So we have to convert every work always to the next and to the current formats. And this is a big challenge, I have to say, definitely, yeah.
And so Julia is somehow going back and forwards in some sort of a double step here. You know, she's actually trying to find the works also historically, I guess, you know, from the 70s and 80s. How far back do you go?
The oldest art piece is from 1963. It's Bruce Nauman. Yeah.
So it kind of starts with the appearance of the video camera or something.
Yeah. It happens in 1960, 63 with the Sony, the Portapax. That was the first mobile video camera that came on the market. Yeah.
Yeah. And Han, I know where it started, obviously.
Yes.
But now you go full with, you know, totally forwards into the future, I presume.
Yes, as far as the technical aspects, of course, since all of my art collection is museums, I don't have to worry about that. It's theirs now.
You're so lucky.
So I'm outsourcing my problems. And then with the new productions, it's obviously the artists themselves who come up with the way. You can adjust to that. But you're very right, Julia, that it seems so easy to project a video, but it really isn't. When I started with focus on video art, I thought, oh, this is very good because we can show it everywhere. We don't have any transportation costs.
Yeah, easy to travel. I know. Yeah.
And no insurance costs. But then, of course, you come to the situation when the works have to be shown in a certain environment. Yeah. This is extremely important for the artist. So how do you do it when there's a group exhibition with so many different videos going on, with the sound from one video being heard in the area of the other? Yeah. And those are real challenges, and I don't think there's yet a clear answer to that.
So your collection is actually totally taken care of by which museums?
Particularly the Museum Boijmans van Beuningen, the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands. I'm from Holland originally, so that's where the Pont in Tilburg, Huis Marseille in Amsterdam. So Dutch museums.
And which museums would you say in the world are the most advanced when it comes to these kinds of I mean, I have worked for normal institutions or normal, let's say, mainstream art institutions for my whole life, almost in Germany and Scandinavia and a little bit in the US. And I mean, I know that in some places they are at least very interested in this kind of technical experimentation. But do you have particularly rewarding experiences from some places?
Julia, do you?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Kramlich collection before. This is a very important media collection based in the US. I would say my collection is now the biggest and largest in Europe. So there are not so many collections focused on time-based media art worldwide. As you mentioned before, all the official institutions start collecting video and time-based media art, but with a special focus. As I know, there are only 2 worldwide.
Right.
So Daniel, you mentioned the challenges and you talked about the technical part. That's really not my forte. So I would like to move it a little bit to the area I feel most comfortable with.
Yes.
And when you say what is the challenge, what we've been finding is that the biggest challenge is, of course, to find this artist that's promising and that we can help. Because if we help some, we won't be able to help others. So, of course, it's very important to find the right artist. And the system we have with the scouts works very well. But then, of course, there are artists in some parts of the world that practically nobody knows about. And those are exactly the artists that we want to reach. Those are the ones that really need our help. So it's almost like a detective story. How do we get to these artists that often do not live in an environment where there's an art infrastructure, who have never been to a museum in their life, because there isn't one in the north of Afghanistan and there isn't one in Cambodia. People who have a sensitivity and above all who have something to say. Those are the people we want to reach. This is the first challenge, how to reach them through the scouts, through a network that we constantly have to extend, because that's, we move around the world and from one artist we can go to the other one. But then there's a second challenge. It really only begins when we find the artist. These artists from countries where there's no art infrastructure would love to come to Europe and visit a museum, meet with other artists, meet with people who can talk with them about their work. And that's what we've been doing. But I also wonder, so what does that mean? You change somebody's life, you take him or her out of their environment, which is very often the source of their inspiration. You put them somewhere far away, often in cold, gray, Nordic cities, where people stay indoors. They may feel a bit lost. They may also feel a little bit intimidated because so many people know so much about art history, about all sorts of theories. They feel that they may be behind in that sense. And then, even if they are there for a couple of years and they learn, do you send them back to places where they may be killed because of the bombs? It's an incredible responsibility because you start to change somebody's life and then you let them go and work it out themselves. How do you deal with that? I don't have the answer to that question yet, but those are things we encounter along the way. We're all connected, but obviously through art. We have an artist from Afghanistan who's showing at the Peace Foundation in Barcelona at the moment. And he lives in Belgium now. But before we worked with him and talked with him in Kabul, we could hear the bombs falling. That brings things very close. That brings this connection that we all have, we should feel with the rest of the world, makes that very strong. And it gives you a responsibility. There are many questions to ask. How can you make the life of somebody else better? You want to do that in a sustainable way. And so, you were talking about the technical parts.
No, but I love your idea of sharing and supporting artists and the idea of education. I mean, this is also something I'm very, very driven by. That's why I started to make the collection completely online accessible. So
yeah.
If we look to the future, I think art has to be accessible and has to be seen, and there has to be the possibility to view art from everywhere and all the time. And that's why I started this project. And comparing to other platforms and video formats where you can only see a documentation of an exhibition, what we do, and I think this is really unique in the art history, I put the artwork itself online, so everybody can join my collection, and I think this is something that hasn't been before, because you don't have to pay, you don't need to register, there is no time limits, we have the permission of the artist, And it comes also from the idea of the beginning of video art, because it was a very democratic art form at the beginning, produced to be accessible for everyone. And I love the idea now to go back to this beginning of video art and to make the collection accessible. And in the future time, everybody has my collection. So this is something I absolutely love, and I think this is something we both have in common. So I'm not interested in the ownership, but to share and to make art accessible. And so this is a really big project for me.
Yeah, that's what art's being made for, right? To be seen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And thank you, Han, for reminding us of the bigger picture of, you know, what life is like in other places. And I have to say that a possibility of this kind of art is the democratizing possibility of reaching beyond places where the three of us happen to live, where there are major museums, but there are so many in the world, actually. There are questions coming in, and you know, I get many, but we don't have infinite time, but I will pick a few of them because they interest me too. One of them is a little bit with ownership, actually. So, I mean, it could be also be interesting since you are actually spending resources on these things. And it's, how do we ensure that digital art isn't easily copied without the artist's approval? I mean, this has to do with the editions and why should there be an edition of 5, or 3, or 10? And how do we say, what are the challenges here?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I often get asked. So also,
yeah, me too.
So everyone is allowed in my exhibition to take the mobile phone and to film everything. And if you take it home and you watch it hundreds of times, I'm happy with that. And also the artists have no problems, because it's such a difference to watch a video on the computer or on your mobile, but and to see it installed in an exhibition. So it was never a problem, and as an official institution, for sure, I'm allowed to present it official, and nobody would take a video and show it official, taken by the camera of a mobile phone. So it's never a problem. And for our digitization project, so we have special security systems that gives us and the artist the guarantee that the artworks are not possible to download and yeah, to get copied. So it's working. It's not a problem at all.
That's my experience too.
But if they can copy the code and to take the real piece. Now I'm devil's advocate here.
Again, the connection was a little bad.
I mean, one thing is to take a photo inside your exhibition, but the other one is there's a way to kind of duplicate the actual piece.
Yeah, but what happens then? You join it at home on your computer, or you join it at home and beam it on your wall in your living room. You can't show it official. You can't make it as an official exhibition. So join it.
There's no museum that will show a copied video.
Never.
Okay, so that answers it. Another question, which of course is very close to my heart, considering what I'm working with today, is what future technologies will artists be using to create new media art? I mean, well, Julia, you and I have been collaborating, so it's clear that there are a few new possibilities around.
Yeah, definitely. I think VR and also AR enable artists to work with completely new artistic languages and create a completely new world. Let's see how the technique is changing at the moment. The Oculus Rift glasses are heavy, but in the future time, maybe we have just contact lenses or little glasses, and let's see what happens in the future. It's super exciting. I love the idea to use new technologies, and let's see what's going to happen in the future. So
I think the interesting thing about the new technologies is also that it's also very much cross-border disciplines. You know, we move into so many other things: social issues, architecture, ecology, etc. Music, exactly. Yeah, and that's so enriching.
Yeah, I'm curious. This has a little bit to do with the things I'm working with myself. Actually, next week we open the biggest augmented reality show ever produced here in London, Along the River, and it will be Chow Fei and Olafur and Darren Bader and many other artists. And it's totally beyond institutions now because it just happens in the outside.
Yeah, and everyone with a smartphone can use it. That's fantastic.
Exactly. Because I mean, it used to be that you needed very complex technologies, but now we actually have very complex technologies, at least the three of us, with an iPhone or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, there are of course new possibilities. Han, are the people the young people that are getting these stipends and possibilities, are they already digging into these things?
Yes, I remember working with a Korean artist, Hechung Kim, and he made a video. Part of it was filmed with his telephone, and it was about how reality and fiction sort of overlap and become sometimes indistinguishable, about how that's part of young people's life. And this is what I meant when I said that I become acquainted with so many different styles and so many different subjects that I wouldn't be aware of. In the beginning, it was even difficult for me to look at because it was very much the way young people talk with each other. It's all very quick and very, very almost like in a code. But I got used to that, and I think that that's another aspect of collecting the way Julia and I do, is that you have a tendency to stay in your comfort zone, in the aesthetic that you appreciate, that you like very much, let's say, but through working with all these different artists from all different parts of the world, I get exposed to different languages and to different aesthetics, and that's very good.
I'm a bit surprised and that the two of you have actually never met before, so I'm very happy that this is a chance for the two of you to actually talk to each other and not just talk to me and the audience. We are coming to an end, so maybe I should ask Julia, do you have a comment or a question or something you want to tell your colleague? And Han, is there a question for Julia or something that you know, I at the very beginning, before we even went online, you said we should do things together. This is a start.
Yeah, maybe this is the beginning of a project. For I mean, I'm very, very happy and thankful to meet Han. I mean, Daniel, we know each other for such a long time. No, and I really love what you are doing, and it's fantastic. And maybe let's see what happens in the future time when we can do a project together, a cooperation or something like that. So that's I'm very interested in. And I mean, Daniel, you know, my heart is beating for you. I love so much what you are doing, and I think also in the future we have to work together again. I mean, we did a few projects before, and I'm looking very, very much forward. Yeah, to collaborate with both of you.
Thank you very much, Julia. That's very nice, and it's I feel the same way. You know, I'm constantly working with other people, with the scouts, with the artists, with people from institutions, and well, again, this has to do with this idea of when you share, you're not alone. That gives a reason to our life, and it gives pleasure. So, I'm very willing eager to work with you.
Both. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Han, and thank you, the Baylor Foundation and Muse, the Rolls-Royce initiative, you know, a new initiative in this field. I'm curious about what will come out of that. Very promising. And there are new questions coming in, but we have to keep them for some other occasion, because we said we will not go on forever. And I think that, you know, we summed it up quite well with the importance of sharing things. So thank you so much. And I hope to see you in real life at some point, both of you.
Yes,
definitely. Thanks. We will.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.